It started like any ordinary day on Earth. People went about their routines, unaware that something extraordinary was about to touch their lives. In offices, homes, schools, and laboratories, life moved in its usual rhythm. Children laughed in playgrounds, commuters rushed through busy streets, and scientists focused on experiments that might have seemed trivial at the time. But high above the clouds, something unusual was happening. A strange signal had been detected. At first, it was dismissed as a technical glitch or some natural cosmic interference. But then the signal repeated, and then it came again, unmistakably deliberate, structured, and intelligent. Scientists working at various observatories around the globe noticed it simultaneously. It wasn't coming from a nearby planet or asteroid. It was from far beyond the solar system, from a region of space humanity had only begun to understand. The signal carried symbols that seemed to form a language. Weeks passed as experts tried to decode it. Governments and scientific communities were notified, and soon humanity realized that this was not just random noise. This was contact. The world was hearing from a civilization beyond Earth for the first time in human history. When the translation was finally partially successful, the message shocked everyone. It was from an organization calling itself the Galactic Council, a governing body of numerous alien civilizations spread across distant star systems. Their message was direct. Earth must comply with their demands or face consequences. The Council wanted access to Earth's resources, promising guidance in exchange for submission. Panic spread quickly. Social media erupted with theories, news channels ran endless coverage, and governments held emergency meetings. There was fear, confusion, and disbelief. How could humanity, still struggling with internal conflicts, face an advanced civilization from the stars? Despite the fear, some voices urged caution and calm. Scientists and diplomats reminded everyone that humanity had never truly faced the unknown like this before. They emphasized understanding the message fully before taking any action. Yet, at the same time, ordinary people felt a strange mixture of excitement and dread. This was humanity's first undeniable proof that it was not alone in the universe, and the implications were enormous. The Council's message also revealed that they had been observing Earth for decades. They had studied humanity's technology, culture, and behavior from afar, and they had concluded that humans were primitive, chaotic, and unworthy of independence. Their tone was firm and patronizing. "You must comply," it read, "for your own safety." In response, leaders from every nation realized the stakes. Earth had no choice but to unite. This was not just a question of politics or territory. This was a question of survival and identity. For decades, humans had fought each other over land, resources, and ideology. Now, the threat came not from within, but from the stars. In a historic move, the world's nations convened a summit, broadcasting it live. It was unprecedented. No one had ever seen leaders from every corner of the planet in the same room, speaking the same language of survival and solidarity. Scientists, engineers, military strategists, and diplomats sat together, discussing a plan that could either protect humanity or doom it entirely. Meanwhile, everyday people watched, wondering what this meant for their lives. Schools prepared lessons about space and science. Communities debated the ethics of fighting or negotiating with aliens, and families shared anxious conversations over dinner tables. Humanity was collectively holding its breath, waiting for the first sign of how this encounter would unfold. In the labs, scientists worked day and night, trying to understand the message more deeply. They discovered that the Council was capable of manipulating space-time in ways that seemed impossible, and their technology far exceeded anything humans had developed. Satellites were deployed to track incoming signals. Advanced computers tried to predict the Council's next move, and engineers began improvising solutions that might defend Earth if needed. Despite all this preparation, fear lingered. People wondered if humanity was ready for a challenge of this scale. Was the planet truly prepared to face a force that had been observing and judging them from the stars? The uncertainty was enormous, but there was also a growing determination. People began to realize that this was the moment to redefine what it meant to be human. Media coverage was relentless. News outlets shared images of observatories, scientists at work, and global conferences. Citizen videos captured empty streets during times of panic and crowded public forums where people debated the future. Social media became a platform for everyone to voice their concerns, hopes, and even humorous reactions. Memes about aliens quickly circulated, but beneath the humor was a deep curiosity and concern. Humanity was awakening to a new reality. Even as fear grew, there was something extraordinary about this situation. For the first time, humans were united by a common challenge. Countries that had been in long-standing conflicts shared information freely. Engineers in one country collaborated with scientists in another. Philosophers, ethicists, and strategists worked together to consider the implications of interacting with a civilization far more advanced than themselves. The Council's message was clear. They expected Earth to be submissive. They had likely dealt with many civilizations that surrendered easily, offering resources without resistance. They believed that humanity would do the same. But the people of Earth were different. Despite their divisions, they were inventive, unpredictable, and resilient. They had a history of survival through crises, of turning challenges into opportunities, and of rising in moments of great danger. As the world awaited the Council's next communication, a sense of cautious hope emerged. Humanity might be tested, but humans had always been capable of remarkable things when faced with impossible odds. Across the globe, ordinary people, students, workers, parents, felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was no longer just about nations or politics. It was about the collective spirit of humanity. Some experts warned that time was running out. The Council's patience had limits, and a decision would soon be required. Would humanity bow to the alien authority, or would it stand together, asserting its independence? This question became the center of every conversation, debate, and decision. Amid the fear and uncertainty, remarkable acts of courage began to appear. People volunteered for scientific research. Engineers offered their expertise to global defense projects, and citizens prepared to contribute in any way possible. Schools held workshops on coding, mathematics, and physics, hoping to inspire the next generation who might one day interact with these extraterrestrial beings. Humanity was awakening to a new era, one in which survival depended not only on technology, but on unity. Intelligence and courage. The signal from the Council had been clear. But humanity's response was not yet defined. In offices and labs, people wondered, could they find a way to negotiate with beings whose technology and understanding far surpassed their own? Could Earth protect itself from a force that seemed unstoppable? Could humanity prove that it was not just another planet to conquer? Even as these questions lingered, one thing became certain. The first contact had already changed everything. Earth was no longer an isolated world. Its citizens were now part of a larger universe, observed and evaluated by eyes from distant stars. For the first time, every human being understood that their actions mattered not just locally, but on a cosmic scale. And so, humanity waited, studied, and prepared. They did not yet know how the Council would respond, or whether diplomacy, defense, or innovation would be the key to survival. But one thing was clear. Earth was no longer a quiet planet in the vast universe. It was a world capable of standing up, thinking, and perhaps astonishing the galaxy. The first contact had begun, and humanity had already begun its answer, not with fear alone, but with determination, unity, and the fierce desire to show the universe that Earth would not be underestimated. The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for decades, and now their presence was undeniable. They had observed humanity's wars, its inventions, its moments of courage and failure. From their distant vantage, they believed Earth would be easy to manage. After all, humans were still young in the universe, prone to conflict, and limited in technology. The Council assumed that when the time came, humans would comply without question. They were wrong. As the first official envoy of alien ships approached the planet, the world held its breath. Satellites and telescopes tracked the enormous fleet entering Earth's orbit. Unlike anything seen before, the ships were immense, smooth, and almost alive in their movement. Their surfaces reflected the sunlight in shimmering colors, unlike anything created by human hands. People all over the world stared in awe and fear. News channels broadcast images constantly, showing the ships slowly spreading above continents like a silent shadow. Governments scrambled. Military bases were put on high alert. Nations that had fought each other for decades suddenly found themselves sharing intelligence and strategies. Military experts from different continents began holding joint meetings. They discussed defenses, communication methods, and possible ways to reach out diplomatically. Scientists worked with engineers, trying to understand if Earth's satellites, missiles, or experimental energy systems could even touch the alien vessels. Despite all the preparation, there was uncertainty. Humanity had never faced a force like this before. Every prediction seemed to fall short. The Council's ships were faster, larger, and more advanced than anything Earth had seen. Their energy systems and propulsion methods were completely unknown. Some experts feared that even the most optimistic defense plans were inadequate. Still, people refused to give in to despair. Humanity had survived catastrophes before. Humanity had learned to adapt and overcome impossible odds. In cities and towns, ordinary people began taking precautions. Families stored food and water, communities organized safety drills, and scientists encouraged the public to remain calm while preparing. Schools held lessons explaining the situation in ways students could understand. It was as if the entire world had collectively entered a state of heightened awareness, all tuned to a single focus, survival and readiness. As the Council's fleet positioned itself, the aliens sent messages directly to Earth's communication networks. Their tone was formal, distant, and commanding. They demanded compliance, requesting unrestricted access to Earth's resources, including minerals, water, and even energy reserves. They offered guidance and protection, but it was clear this was not a negotiation. It was an order. The message quickly spread worldwide. News agencies broadcast translations, and social media exploded with reactions. Some people felt hopeless. How can we possibly resist? They asked. Others, however, felt a surge of determination. Humanity had been underestimated before. In history, humans had always found ways to survive and to turn disadvantages into strengths. This was no different. Diplomats and world leaders began discussions about how to respond. Should Earth submit, at least temporarily, to avoid destruction? Or should humanity make a stand, risking everything to assert its independence? These debates were intense, but one thing became clear: unity was essential. Any decision made by one nation alone would be meaningless if others acted differently. For the first time, the idea of a global response became more than theory. It became necessity. While leaders debated, scientists worked furiously. They studied the alien signals, trying to decode more than the words. They observed the ship's movements, attempting to predict patterns. Engineers examined Earth's military capabilities to see if anything could realistically reach or affect the fleet. Even students, hobbyists, and amateur astronomers contributed, sharing observations and theories online. Humanity was mobilizing in a way never seen before, and the spirit of collaboration spread far beyond official channels. At the same time, Civilians experienced the impact of the approaching fleet in very human ways. People looked up at the sky in wonder and fear. Some felt a profound awe, as if seeing the universe's mysteries unfold in real time. Others experienced anxiety, imagining worst-case scenarios. Communities came together, holding public forums, prayers, or vigils. There were acts of kindness everywhere, neighbors helping each other prepare, strangers sharing resources, and volunteers assisting in emergency services. Humanity, at its core, was showing the resilience and compassion that the Council had never anticipated. The Council, from their vantage point, expected Earth to crumble under the pressure. They assumed that humans, seeing the superior technology and the threat, would comply without hesitation. But instead, the planet responded in ways they had not predicted. Earth did not panic collectively. It did not surrender quietly. Instead, it started to organize, innovate, and prepare. Military leaders proposed defensive strategies that relied on coordination rather than brute force. Scientists suggested ways to interfere with the alien ship's navigation using electromagnetic pulses and experimental energy fields. Engineers recommended modifying existing satellites into relay networks for communication and data analysis. Every plan was risky, every solution improvised. But it showed one undeniable truth. Humans were capable of thinking in ways that the Council had not accounted for. Meanwhile, ordinary life continued, creating a stark contrast with the global tension. Children played in schoolyards, unaware of the distant observers in the sky. Office workers continued their tasks, though they stole glances at news screens. Farmers tended to their fields, understanding that survival depended as much on feeding people as on building weapons or defenses. Humanity had a way of carrying on, even in the face of existential threats. And this resilience was as important as any technological innovation. The alien fleet began sending smaller probes closer to Earth, testing defenses and gathering information. These probes were fast and precise, slipping through the upper atmosphere, scanning cities, and returning to the motherships. People watched these movements with awe and concern. News channels covered every angle, scientists analyzed every detail, and social media lit up with live updates. Humanity was learning, adapting, and planning in real time. Diplomats worked tirelessly to craft messages back to the Council. The goal was to communicate Earth's position clearly. Humans were not a species that could be easily commanded or controlled. The message would be firm but not hostile, demonstrating intelligence, unity, and determination. It was a delicate balance, because any misstep could provoke an immediate response from the fleet. Yet, humanity knew that words mattered as much as weapons. While the diplomatic and scientific efforts continued, the public played its own role. People took inspiration from history, remembering moments when humans had faced seemingly impossible odds and prevailed. They discussed courage, perseverance, and innovation. They shared ideas for survival and adaptation. A sense of global identity began to emerge, stronger than any national or regional identity. For the first time, humanity thought of itself as one species, facing one challenge together. And then came the first direct interaction. The Council opened a communication channel to broadcast a global message. It was calm, authoritative, and coldly confident. Earth must comply, the aliens stated. Resources will be taken. Resistance will be met with consequences. The words were simple, but the meaning was profound. Humanity's response, however, would not be simple. Scientists, leaders, and citizens alike understood that compliance was not an option. Humanity had a sense of pride, a sense of responsibility, and a sense of identity that could not be surrendered. And so, Earth began to prepare a response that was not just defensive, but deliberate, strategic, and united. It was a response that no one on the Council could have predicted, a response that would soon demonstrate that humans were far more capable than they seemed. Even in this tense period, life continued in small, meaningful ways. People found moments of beauty in the sky, watching the alien ships glint in the sunlight. Families spent evenings together, sharing stories and laughter. Children drew pictures of stars and planets, dreaming of adventures beyond Earth. Humanity, in all its ordinary and extraordinary aspects, prepared for the extraordinary challenge ahead. By the time the Council's fleet fully established its orbit, Earth had already started to transform. Military systems had been upgraded, communication networks enhanced, and scientists had devised strategies for real-time observation and intervention. Civilians had contributed ideas, supported one another, and shown a determination that was visible from space. The planet that the Council assumed would be weak and divided was becoming resilient, coordinated, and formidable. The Council had expected fear, submission, and chaos. Instead, they witnessed coordination, courage, and intelligence. They began to realize that the humans of Earth were unpredictable in ways that could not be measured by technology alone. Every action, from scientific ingenuity to everyday acts of solidarity, contributed to a growing sense that Earth might not only survive, but could surprise the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. Humanity had been tested and had responded not with panic, but with purpose. The world had come together in an unprecedented way, showing resilience, innovation, and courage. The stage was set for. Earth had never experienced anything like this before. The presence of the alien fleet above was a constant reminder that humanity was being watched, judged, and tested. Yet the people of the planet refused to crumble under the weight of fear. Governments, scientists, engineers, and civilians alike were now working as one, their combined efforts forming a global network that moved faster than anyone could have imagined. The first step was understanding. Every satellite, every probe, every observational instrument became a tool to study the fleet. Scientists analyzed the energy fields surrounding the ships, their speed, and even the patterns in which they moved. Engineers began adapting Earth's existing technology, finding creative ways to counteract potential threats. Even simple systems, like power grids and communication satellites, were upgraded with new protocols, just in case they were needed for defense or coordination. But it wasn't only about machines. Humans were finding ways to coordinate themselves like never before. Military strategists shared their expertise with scientists and diplomats, combining tactics, intelligence, and negotiation strategies into one unified plan. The world's strongest. Defense systems were no longer divided by borders. They were shared openly, forming a single, global approach to a potential threat that no one nation could handle alone. Every ordinary citizen played a role in this transformation. Schools introduced new lessons about physics, space, and problem solving, so the younger generation could contribute. Volunteers helped build communication networks, organize community preparedness drills, and support families in areas vulnerable to natural or man-made disasters. Even the media began focusing on informative content rather than panic-inducing speculation, emphasizing unity, preparation, and resilience. Humanity had never needed cooperation like this before, and it was rising to the challenge. The Council, observing from afar, began to notice that their assumptions were wrong. They expected fear, confusion, and chaos. Instead, they were seeing focus, coordination, and innovation. It was a species that adapted quickly, learned fast, and worked together under pressure. They could have underestimated Earth, but they could not deny the visible change happening on the planet. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was not idle. Smaller ships detached from the main vessels and began scanning specific regions. Cities, military installations, and research centers were under observation. People could see the glimmer of alien probes in the sky at night, moving faster than anything human-made. Yet instead of panic, curiosity grew. Humanity began cataloging these probes, tracking their movement, and studying their behavior. Every interaction, every observation became data, and data became knowledge, a weapon of its own kind. Humanity also began reaching out diplomatically. A unified message was prepared for the Council, one that combined confidence with caution. It explained that humans valued their independence, that they were capable of innovation, and that any attempt at forced compliance would be met with determined resistance. This was not a threat, but a statement of identity. Humanity was saying, in clear terms, that it was not an easy species to control. This approach was supported by real preparation. Engineers developed experimental energy pulses, magnetic interference, systems, and other defensive technologies that could disrupt navigation and communication. While untested, these systems were carefully designed, studied, and coordinated across multiple regions. Scientists and technicians worked in shifts around the clock, making sure that every possible scenario was considered. Humanity was not relying on chance. They were preparing to demonstrate capability. Across the world, ordinary life continued in parallel with this extraordinary preparation. Children played and laughed. Families went about their routines, and people celebrated small victories. Farmers tended fields, workers produced food, and healthcare providers continued their essential work. Humanity's resilience lay not only in technology and strategy, but in its everyday ability to maintain society under pressure. People were adapting emotionally as well as practically, showing patience, courage, and creativity. As days passed, it became clear that the alien fleet expected submission. Their probes moved more boldly, and their messages became sharper. They demanded access to resources and technology, implying that Earth's future depended on obedience. But humans had begun to act unpredictably. Their communication was firm, their strategies complex, and their unity growing stronger. Every day, they sent back messages that showed intelligence, coordination, and confidence. Even the scientists were amazed at what they were seeing. Humans had never faced an advanced civilization before, yet they were responding in ways that were not only practical but innovative. People were using existing technologies in creative ways, combining old knowledge with new ideas. Satellites were adapted for defense. Energy systems were redirected for experimental tests, and even space stations contributed to monitoring and preparedness. Humanity had turned curiosity and fear into a tool for survival. Civilians were also part of this transformation. Across towns and cities, communities organized educational programs, science clubs, and volunteer networks. People shared information, taught each other new skills, and ensured that no one was left behind. Even simple acts like coordinating food distribution, electricity use, and communication lines became crucial parts of the planet-wide effort. Humanity's resilience was not just in technology. It was in people working together with purpose and determination. The Council, watching these developments, began to show signs of hesitation. They had expected an easy encounter, perhaps a few warnings followed by compliance. Instead, they saw a planet transforming before their eyes. Every day brought evidence that humans were not weak or divided. They were adaptable, collaborative, and surprisingly resilient. This was not a species to underestimate, and it was clear that any attempt to force them would be far more complicated than anticipated. At the same time, scientists realized something remarkable. The Council's ships, despite their advanced technology, had patterns that could be studied and predicted. By analyzing probe movements and energy fluctuations, humans could anticipate actions, prepare responses, and even manipulate outcomes. It was a dangerous game, but one that showed the combination of intelligence, observation, and courage that defined the human species. As the world prepared, stories of individual bravery emerged. Citizens volunteered to assist in research, engineers worked overtime on experimental systems, and communities supported each other in practical and emotional ways. People understood that survival was not just about technology. It was about heart, resilience, and unity. Humanity was discovering strength in every ordinary action. Even as tension increased, humanity refused to succumb to fear. People found moments of hope and inspiration. Artists painted and wrote about the stars. Children studied astronomy with excitement, and educators reminded everyone that knowledge was a form of power. The planet was alive with curiosity, determination, and the shared belief that it could face the unknown with courage. Diplomats carefully prepared the next message to the council. It was firm, articulate, and intelligent, demonstrating that humans were capable of independent thought, creativity, and problem-solving. It was not confrontational, but it left no room for underestimation. Humanity was asserting itself, not with weapons alone, but with the unmistakable force of its collective mind and spirit. By now, the alien fleet had moved into closer orbit, scanning cities, military bases, and critical infrastructure. Probes darted through the atmosphere, collecting data on everything from energy usage to human behavior. Yet humans continued to learn and adapt. Every movement was tracked, analyzed, and turned into actionable insight. People were discovering that intelligence and preparation could create opportunities, even in situations that seemed hopeless. As days turned into weeks, Earth became a planet unlike any other. It was no longer just a collection of nations. It was a single entity, united by a common purpose. People worked together, shared knowledge, and coordinated strategies in ways that would have seemed impossible before. From the tiniest village to the largest city, every individual contributed, proving that humanity's greatest strength lay not only in its technology, but in its people. The council began to realize that their assumptions about Earth were dangerously outdated. They had expected fear, submission, and chaos. Instead, they were witnessing determination, intelligence, and unity. Humanity's response was more sophisticated than any technology the aliens had observed, and it was powered by something they could not control. The human spirit. As preparations continued, a sense of cautious optimism spread among humans. They were not just preparing to survive. They were preparing to demonstrate that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. Communities worked, scientists innovated, and leaders coordinated. Everyone understood that the challenge was greater than any one person, nation, or technology. It was a test of humanity itself, and so Earth waited. But waiting was not passive. It was active, deliberate, and strategic. Every observation, every calculation, every act of preparation contributed to a growing confidence. Humanity was ready not just to endure the presence of the council, but to respond in ways that would leave even the most advanced civilizations surprised. The stage was set for the Earth had reached a turning point. The alien fleet had settled into orbit, sending probes and scanning systems, but humanity was no longer waiting passively. Scientists, engineers, military strategists, and ordinary citizens had spent weeks preparing. Every observation, calculation, and experiment had brought the planet closer to understanding how to respond. It was time to act, and Earth was ready not with fear, but with purpose. The first sign of humanity's preparation came in subtle ways. Satellite networks were synchronized, forming a planet-wide grid capable of monitoring energy pulses, movements, and communication signals. Military systems, once isolated by borders and protocols, were now connected across continents. Engineers had modified power stations to create controlled energy bursts, and research teams had developed experimental electromagnetic systems that could interfere with navigation. These systems were carefully planned to avoid harm to humans, yet powerful enough to surprise an enemy with superior technology. At the same time, communication channels were strengthened. Humanity needed to send a clear message to the Council. Earth was united, capable, and determined. Diplomats worked with scientists to draft messages that were firm but non-threatening. These messages emphasized that humans valued peace and learning, but would not submit to coercion. Every phrase was considered, every word chosen to demonstrate intelligence, resilience, and independence. Ordinary people played an equally vital role. Citizens volunteered to maintain observation posts, help with communication networks, and assist in logistical support. In communities across the world, drills were conducted to prepare for emergencies, ensuring that families could stay safe while contributing to collective efforts. Teachers turned classrooms into hubs of problem-solving and innovation, encouraging students to think critically about energy, space, and technology. Humanity had become an active participant in its own survival, proving that courage was not just the work of leaders or experts. It belonged to everyone. The Council, observing Earth from their advanced ships, began to notice something unexpected. They had assumed that humans would panic or surrender. Instead, they saw focus, coordination, and innovation. They saw a species that could adapt rapidly, think strategically, and work together under immense pressure. For the first time, the aliens seemed to hesitate. They were unsure how to predict or control humanity's actions, and this uncertainty gave humans an advantage. Then came the first deliberate act of resistance. Humanity activated its experimental systems in a coordinated display that stunned the Council. Across continents, satellites and energy grids worked together to generate pulses that interfered with the fleet's navigation sensors. The alien probes, once precise and confident, began to falter, their paths interrupted by carefully timed energy bursts. This was no reckless attack. Every move had been calculated to test the Council's response and to demonstrate capability. The pulses caused no permanent damage, but clearly indicated that Earth was not defenseless. Humanity had found a way to show that even a technologically superior force could be challenged with intelligence, coordination, and creativity. People around the world watched in awe. News outlets broadcast images of satellites firing pulses into orbit, energy grids synchronizing, and scientists monitoring every reaction in real time. Social media exploded with excitement as ordinary citizens shared their experiences and observations. The atmosphere shifted from fear to inspiration. Humanity realized it could face the unknown not only with courage, but with cleverness and unity. The Council, meanwhile, faced a crisis of expectation. Their probes were no longer moving as intended, and their larger ships began to adjust in ways that showed uncertainty. They had never encountered a species that could analyze, adapt, and implement solutions so quickly. The humans' combination of technical skill and collective coordination was something the Council had not prepared for. In response, humanity took the next step. Diplomats delivered messages emphasizing respect but asserting independence. They expressed a desire to learn from the Council but refused to be coerced. The language was deliberate, showing maturity, confidence, and awareness. The message was simple, clear, and powerful. Earth would not be commanded, and its people were capable of defending themselves. At the same time, scientists and engineers continued to innovate. They observed patterns in the fleet's movements and adjusted their systems in real time. Energy bursts were timed with precision, satellites were repositioned, and data from global observation posts was analyzed instantly. Humanity was no longer reactive, it was proactive. Every action served a purpose, every adjustment demonstrated intelligence, and every success boosted confidence. Communities around the world were inspired by this progress. Schools held workshops on basic energy principles and space observation. Families discussed strategies for cooperation and problem solving. Ordinary people began contributing in practical ways, from monitoring local communication hubs to helping maintain backup power systems. The planet itself had become a living, coordinated network of preparation and resilience. Even as humanity demonstrated capability, the Council attempted to intimidate further. Smaller ships moved closer to key cities, sending pulses intended to disrupt communication. Probes hovered over critical infrastructure, testing response times. But humans had anticipated this. Backup networks, automated response systems, and community coordination ensured that every challenge was met without panic. The alien fleet was forced to recognize that their assumptions about fear and submission were incorrect. As the hours passed, humanity's coordinated efforts began to create a new dynamic. The Council's fleet, once dominant, was now cautious. They had underestimated the creativity, adaptability, and unity of Earth's people. Every action, from technical innovation to public coordination, had contributed to a growing awareness that humans were capable of defending their planet in unexpected ways. This shift was visible not only in technical achievements, but in human spirit. People no longer felt like passive observers. They were active participants in a global effort. Volunteers repaired equipment, students contributed ideas, and communities maintained morale and communication. Humanity had turned fear into action, uncertainty into preparation, and observation into intelligence. The Council, for the first time, seemed uncertain. They had expected submission and chaos, but were confronted with strategy, coordination, and courage. They observed humans not as a primitive species to be controlled, but as an unpredictable, adaptable, and determined civilization. Their calculations, predictions, and assumptions had failed. Humans had found ways to innovate under pressure, creating solutions that the Council could not anticipate. In the midst of this, everyday life continued in quiet human ways. People shared meals, walked in parks, and maintained routines. Farmers ensured the food supply, workers maintained critical infrastructure, and families supported each other emotionally. This ordinary resilience, quiet, persistent, and human, was part of the larger strength that no alien technology could easily replicate. Humanity was defending itself not only with technology, but with character, culture, and cooperation. Then came the moment of realization. Scientists and leaders understood that their strategy had succeeded. The Council's fleet was no longer confident in its ability to control or predict Earth's response. The humans had demonstrated that they could act decisively, intelligently, and collectively. Even without causing direct harm, their coordinated efforts had shifted the balance. Earth was no longer seen as a passive planet. It was a capable, resilient, and united world. Humanity's response had another effect. It inspired hope, pride, and confidence. People realized that they were not helpless. They were capable of facing threats far beyond previous experience. Communities, schools, and organizations began to see themselves as part of a global effort, a single species standing together against uncertainty. This realization strengthened cooperation, improved communication, and fostered innovation across all levels of society. Meanwhile, the Council adjusted its approach. It became clear that intimidation alone would not work. Humans were intelligent, unpredictable, and united. Attempts to manipulate or coerce were met with coordination and strategy. The Council had never faced a species that could adapt so quickly and act decisively under pressure. Every move they made was being carefully analyzed and met with calculated responses. This new dynamic marked a turning point. Humanity had proven that it could respond to threats with ingenuity, unity, and courage. The planet had transformed into a coordinated, intelligent system capable of observing, predicting, and reacting to challenges in real time. The Council, once confident, was now forced to reassess its assumptions. Humans were not just surviving, they were asserting their independence in a way that could not be ignored. Across the globe, the human spirit flourished. People celebrated small successes, shared knowledge, and inspired each other to continue. Schools, communities, and workplaces became hubs of innovation and cooperation. Humanity had discovered that its greatest strength was not only in technology, but in the ability to work together, adapt, and act with determination. And so, as the alien fleet continued to hover above, Earth's response was clear. It was not aggressive in the destructive sense, but it was bio. After humanity's first coordinated demonstration, the Galactic Council could no longer look at Earth the same way. The species they had once dismissed as primitive and divided had shown resilience, intelligence, and the ability to act with astonishing unity. Every calculation they had made about fear, submission, and predictability was wrong. The Council now faced a reality it had never encountered: a young civilization capable of thinking and acting in ways that challenged their expectations. Inside the alien ships, the mood shifted from confident superiority to uncertainty. Council leaders communicated with one another in their own advanced language, trying to understand what humans had done and how to respond. Every sensor reading, every probe report, every intercepted message from Earth pointed to one undeniable truth: humanity had become unpredictable. They had transformed from a species to be observed into a force to be reckoned with. On Earth, the sense of achievement was palpable. People watched as news reports highlighted the successful coordination of satellites, energy grids, and communication networks. Scientists explained how the interference pulses had disrupted the fleet's navigation systems without causing harm. Engineers showed how existing technology had been adapted in creative ways, and diplomats revealed the carefully crafted messages sent to the Council. Humanity had sent a clear signal. They were capable, united, and determined to maintain their independence. The impact of this demonstration went beyond technology or strategy. It revealed something deeper about humanity itself: the combination of courage, creativity, and collaboration that defined people across the planet. Communities had worked together, volunteers had supported research and logistics, and ordinary citizens had contributed by sharing information, observing patterns, and helping each other stay safe. It was clear that the planet's strength came not just from machines or experiments, but from the human spirit itself. The Council, for them also, first time, began to see Earth not as a planet to be managed, but as a civilization to be respected. Their reports indicated frustration and disbelief. How could a species so young act with such intelligence and coordination? How could humans respond so quickly and effectively, combining observation, analysis, and action in ways that rivaled the Council's expectations? Every assessment of weakness had been proven wrong. In the following days, humanity continued its efforts. The pulse systems and satellite networks remained active, ready to respond to any new action from the fleet. Engineers improved energy distribution and response times. Scientists refined predictions of the Council's movements, and diplomats maintained clear communication channels. Humanity had moved from reactive preparation to proactive readiness. They were not waiting to see what would happen. They were shaping the outcome. Meanwhile, ordinary life continued in its quiet, human way. Families shared meals, children studied and played, and communities supported one another. Farmers ensured that food supplies were stable. Medical teams maintained care for those in need, and volunteers kept essential services running. These simple acts, often unnoticed, became part of a larger story of resilience and preparedness. Humanity had discovered that survival was as much about maintaining life and morale as it was about technology or strategy. The Council struggled to understand the humans' combination of intellect and emotion. They had anticipated fear, panic, and disorder. Instead, They found organization, calm, and determination. The species they had dismissed as immature had proven that it could adapt, innovate, and act collectively under pressure. This realization forced the council to reconsider their approach. Intimidation alone would not work, and aggression risked provoking unpredictable retaliation. Diplomats on Earth recognized this shift and seized the opportunity. Messages to the council emphasized respect, curiosity, and a desire for peaceful coexistence, while also asserting that humans would not be coerced. The language was clear and deliberate. Earth was capable of defending itself. It valued independence, and it could innovate in ways that no external force should assume to control. This balance of firmness and diplomacy showcased humanity's ability to think strategically and communicate effectively. Scientists continued to monitor the fleet, observing subtle signs of hesitation. The alien ships moved more cautiously, probes were less aggressive, and sensor readings indicated a reassessment of human capabilities. Humanity's coordinated systems had forced the Council to acknowledge the planet as a serious entity. Earth was no longer simply under observation. It was now a participant in its own destiny. This acknowledgement had a ripple effect across the globe. People realized that their actions had tangible consequences on a cosmic scale. Volunteers, students, workers, and leaders alike understood that every contribution mattered, no matter how small. Communities became more organized, schools became centers of innovation, and ordinary citizens found new ways to apply their skills. Humanity had learned that collaboration, intelligence, and courage were powerful tools against uncertainty. In parallel, the Council began internal debates. Some members argued that humanity was too young and reckless to be allowed autonomy, but others recognized the danger of underestimating them. Every new observation from the planet contradicted old assumptions. Humans were innovative, adaptable, and capable of rapid learning. They could act strategically under pressure and coordinate globally in ways that the Council had not predicted. The reality was undeniable. Earth had earned recognition, whether the Council wanted to admit it or not. Even as the Council deliberated, humanity continued to evolve its systems. Satellite grids were upgraded with faster communication protocols. Energy networks were fine-tuned for precision response, and monitoring systems became more accurate. The planet's people were no longer simply waiting for contact, they were actively shaping it. Every observation of the alien fleet was analyzed, every probe movement was mapped, and every potential response was calculated and tested. Ordinary citizens continued to play their part in this extraordinary moment. Volunteers helped maintain observation posts, shared information, and assisted scientists with data collection. Teachers turned lessons into real-world problem-solving exercises, inspiring students to think critically about space, energy, and coordination. Communities shared resources and knowledge, ensuring that no one was left behind in the effort to prepare for the unknown. Humanity had become a planet-wide organism, united by purpose and determination. As these preparations continued, the Council began to communicate differently. Messages became less commanding and more cautious. They acknowledged Earth's capability, though still in formal, distant language. The aliens were learning that humanity could not be intimidated or controlled in the ways they had expected. The planet had demonstrated that it could act decisively, creatively, and collectively, leaving the Council unsure of how to proceed. The impact of this acknowledgement extended beyond strategy or technology. It affected morale and identity. Humans realized they had reached a historic moment. For the first time, the planet's people felt a shared understanding that their species was capable of influencing events on a galactic scale. Ordinary acts, from maintaining infrastructure to contributing to observation efforts, became part of a larger story of resilience, intelligence, and courage. Even as the planet's systems continued to operate, people found time to reflect. Families, educators, and communities discussed the significance of their actions. They realized that Earth's unity and innovation were not just responses to an external threat, they were evidence of the planet's potential. Humanity had become aware of its ability to act as one, to think strategically, and to survive and thrive under pressure. The Council could no longer view Earth as a simple, weak planet. Reports from their probes and sensors showed coordination, innovation, and intelligence at every level. Humans were not just surviving, they were asserting themselves in ways that could not be ignored. The species that had once seemed disorganized and limited had proven that it could respond to a superior force with strategy, creativity, and unity. This realization caused the Council to pause. Aggression or coercion could now have unpredictable consequences. Every potential move had to be reconsidered, as humans had demonstrated that they could adapt and respond faster than expected. The planet's people had forced the Council to acknowledge a new reality. Earth was capable, resilient, and not to be underestimated. Across the globe, the effect was profound. People celebrated achievements, shared knowledge, and inspired each other to continue innovating. Schools, communities, and workplaces became hubs of problem-solving and cooperation. Humanity had learned a lesson that extended beyond technology or strategy. Unity, courage, and creativity could challenge even the most powerful forces. And so, Earth stood firm. The planet had demonstrated capability without aggression, intelligence without hostility, and unity without fear. The Council had been forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humans. They now faced a species that could not be commanded, underestimated, or controlled in the ways they had expected. Humanity's presence was no longer passive. It was an active assertion of independence, innovation, and resilience. As the days continued, the Council struggled with the reality of Earth's strength. They had underestimated the planet. The days that followed humanity's demonstration were filled with a mixture of anticipation and cautious optimism. The alien fleet remained in orbit, but it was no longer the silent, overwhelming presence it had once been. The Galactic Council had taken note of humanity's intelligence, coordination, and courage. They had expected fear, submission, and chaos, but they were faced with something they could not ignore, a species that could think, act, and unite in ways that rivaled advanced civilizations. On Earth, a sense of quiet triumph spread across communities. People continued to innovate, communicate, and organize, but now there was a newfound confidence. Humanity had proven its capability and resilience, and this realization transformed the way people saw themselves. Ordinary citizens were no longer just inhabitants of a planet. They were active participants in shaping the destiny of their species. Scientists and engineers continued their work, improving systems that monitored the fleet and refined energy and communication networks. Satellites were synchronized with remarkable precision, enabling real-time observation and response. Electromagnetic interference systems, energy pulses, and experimental strategies had become tools of strategy rather than desperation. Humanity had moved from reactive defense to proactive planning, turning every challenge into an opportunity to demonstrate intelligence and creativity. The Council, observing these developments, began to reconsider their approach. They had once seen Earth as a planet to be commanded, its people as a primitive species to be managed. But every day revealed something new. Humans adapted quickly, learned rapidly, and acted collectively. The aliens realized that intimidation or coercion could provoke reactions they might not predict. Earth had become a planet of surprises, and the Council had no choice but to acknowledge its independence. Diplomats on Earth seized this opportunity. They sent messages to the Council that emphasized mutual respect, curiosity, and the potential for peaceful cooperation. The tone was confident but measured, showing that humans were intelligent, capable, and willing to engage, but not to surrender. Every word reinforced the understanding that Earth would act in its own interest and defend itself if necessary. The message was clear. Humanity was ready to join the galactic stage as an independent and capable civilization. Across the globe, communities continued to play their part. Volunteers maintained observation posts. Engineers and scientists collaborated on refining experimental systems, and schools incorporated lessons on strategy, technology, and collaboration. Even ordinary acts like maintaining power grids, distributing resources, and sharing information were part of a larger network of resilience. Humanity had demonstrated that survival and strength were not solely about advanced technology. They were about people working together with intelligence and purpose. The alien fleet, once a symbol of dominance, now reflected caution. Probes moved with hesitation, and larger ships adjusted their positions as if trying to understand the new reality. The Council was forced to admit that humans were capable of defending themselves, innovating under pressure, and coordinating on a planetary scale. Every observation, every pulse, every strategic adaptation showed that Earth was no ordinary world. This shift had profound effects on human morale. People no longer acted out of fear. They acted out of confidence and purpose. Communities collaborated on innovative projects, shared knowledge, and inspired one another to continue pushing boundaries. Families discussed strategy and creativity. Schools turned classrooms into hubs of problem-solving, and ordinary citizens contributed to observation, communication, and preparedness efforts. Humanity had become a living system of intelligence and cooperation, demonstrating that courage and ingenuity were as powerful as technology. The Council, for the first time, began to treat Earth as a civilization worthy of respect. Their communication shifted from commands to cautious inquiry. They asked questions about humanity's capabilities, intentions, and potential for cooperation. This marked a turning point. The aliens recognized that humans were no longer passive. They were active, intelligent participants capable of shaping their own destiny. Earth was no longer a planet to be managed. It was a member of a larger galactic community, one that demanded recognition. Humanity responded with clarity and diplomacy. Messages emphasized a desire to learn, to share knowledge, and to explore. Cooperation, while also asserting independence and readiness to defend the planet. This balance of confidence and caution reflected humanity's growth. It showed the Council that Earth could participate in the galactic stage intelligently, strategically, and responsibly. As the weeks passed, humanity's confidence and unity grew even stronger. Engineers refined energy systems. Satellites became even more precise in monitoring the fleet, and communities maintained their role in supporting observation and communication networks. The planet had become a coordinated organism, with every individual contributing to the safety, knowledge, and strategic readiness of humanity. The Council, now fully aware of humanity's capabilities, began to treat Earth with caution and respect. They were no longer commanding. They were negotiating, observing, and attempting to understand. Humanity had demonstrated not only resilience and intelligence, but also creativity and collaboration qualities that even advanced civilizations recognized as formidable. On Earth, ordinary people continued to demonstrate extraordinary strength. Teachers inspired students to think critically. Volunteers supported technological and observational efforts, and communities maintained resilience and organization. Humanity had proven that survival, innovation, and influence depended as much on people as on machines. Courage, intelligence, and unity had become the defining traits of a species now ready to take its place among the stars. The Council began proposing opportunities for peaceful collaboration. They offered to share knowledge, demonstrate technologies, and exchange ideas, but only with the understanding that humans were equals, capable of independent thought and action. This represented a monumental shift. Humanity was no longer being treated as an experiment or a minor species, was being recognized as a player on a galactic level. People across the world celebrated this recognition quietly and deliberately. The joy came not from dominance or aggression, but from the knowledge that humanity had earned respect. Scientists, engineers, volunteers, and ordinary citizens understood that their contributions had created a new reality. Every observation, calculation, and coordinated action had helped achieve this outcome. Humanity had proven itself not only to the Council, but to itself. Even as recognition grew, people remained focused on preparation and improvement. Schools continued to teach about space, energy, and strategy. Engineers and scientists explored new technologies. Communities refined communication networks. Humanity had learned that respect in the galaxy was earned through intelligence, collaboration, and courage, not by chance. The Council began to adapt to this new reality as well. Their interactions shifted from dominance to dialogue. They sought to understand human decision-making, resilience, and creativity. Every question they posed was met with analysis, strategy, and insight from humans. The aliens realized that Earth had become more than a planet. They had become a civilization, capable of thought, action, and negotiation at the highest level. At the same time, humanity embraced a new sense of identity. People realized that their species was capable of not only surviving threats, but also shaping its own destiny. Communities became more resilient, families more connected, and students more inspired. Humanity had discovered the power of unity, intelligence, and courage on a planetary scale. The final stage of this extraordinary encounter came when the Council formally acknowledged Earth's capabilities. Their message was cautious, but respectful. They admitted that their assumptions had been wrong, that humanity had demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and courage beyond expectation, and that the planet deserved recognition and respect. This acknowledgement marked the first time humanity was treated as an independent civilization by a galactic authority. Celebration on Earth was quiet, reflective, and profound. People recognized that their collective efforts had reshaped the perception of the planet in the eyes of an advanced civilization. Scientists, engineers, volunteers, and communities had contributed to a historic moment. Humanity had proven that courage, intelligence, creativity, and unity could elevate a species from fear to recognition, from uncertainty to respect. In the following days, Earth began exploring collaboration with the Council. Diplomatic exchanges focused on knowledge sharing, mutual learning, and peaceful coexistence. Humanity maintained its independence, but it had gained access to insights, technologies, and perspectives that had once seemed unimaginable. The planet was no longer isolated. It was part of a larger, interconnected universe. This new status brought both responsibility and inspiration. Humanity had earned recognition, but it had also learned the importance of preparation, unity, and resilience. People understood that cooperation, intelligence, and courage were as vital as technology in navigating the challenges of the galaxy. Communities continued to innovate, teach, and support each other, ensuring that the spirit of humanity remained strong. The Galactic Council, once confident of easy control, had been left without words. They